If you're like me and you're tired of people talking about calories in versus calories out, or the idea that you need to eat less and move more, and that's why you have belly fat or are overweight, then this video is for you. My name is Regine Mora. I'm also known as Mommy Mango. I help women of all ages with their loose tummy, back pain, leaking, and we do it all without spending hours in the gym or starving ourselves. So that's what we're talking about today, because I think as I've been working with a lot of women who are struggling with these issues, we get this idea that maybe I'm eating too much and maybe I'm not working out enough, and then it becomes more of an issue of, oh, maybe I have lack of willpower and discipline, when that is actually not it. It's the farthest from the truth. And I want to go over that today because we are looking at how calories really don't equal calories. And I want you to really dig deep with me so that we can understand what's going on. So here I have a calorie does not equal a calorie. And what is a calorie? A calorie is simply a measurement of energy. Okay, that's it. It's a measurement of energy. But our hormones actually tell our bodies what to do with that energy. Okay, follow me here because we're going to look at the main hormone that drives storage of fat, and that is, especially belly fat, that is insulin. So energy comes in the form of calories, but insulin is going to decide whether your body is going to store it or not. Okay, so let's look at that. If you want to get more detail on how your body stores fat and how your body burns fat, especially as it relates to belly fat, check out my video that I did last week. I spoke about that in detail. But as a little bit of a review, let's go over what the body does, how the body stores belly fat. So we eat some kind of carbohydrate. Our body breaks it down into glucose. Our body only likes about 1 teaspoon of glucose in the bloodstream at a time. And once it gets past that teaspoon, our body will put out insulin. Our body puts out insulin because it's going to tell it, clean up the bloodstream. We don't want that excess glucose. We need to store it. So insulin tells your body to store energy, and this is what happens. So that's put out by the pancreas. So your body begins to store that energy. First, it's going to store it in the form of glycogen. That's just like a bunch of sugar glucose molecules strung together to store it. It puts it there in the liver, and it also stores it here in the muscles. Now, you can only store about a day's worth of energy or glucose or glycogen in those areas, the muscles and the liver. So about 2,000 calories can be stored there. After that, your body starts storing the excess as belly fat for use for later. Okay? So that's how your body stores belly fat, stores glucose. And if you are wanting information as to how your body taps into that, check out my last video on how the body stores and how the body burns belly fat. I go into that in detail. But today we're going to talk about fast carbs versus slow carbs, because you can have carbohydrates that are the same as far as calories are concerned, but they act very differently as to whether or not the body is going to store it as fat or whether or not the body is going to use it. So let's talk about that. So we are going to look at some fast carbs versus some slow carbs. And what we have here is white bread versus sprouted bread, okay? White rice versus brown rice, instant oats versus steel cut oats, and juice versus whole fruit. What happens when you eat those things? Let's say this is the same calories as this. Will this do the same thing in the body? Like if we have 100 calories of white bread versus 100 calories of sprouted bread, does it matter what kind of calories those are? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's look at this little chart here. This chart shows that when you eat something like white bread that has a lot that raises the blood sugar very quickly. You see this chart here? Your blood sugar goes up very quickly, and insulin will also go up very quickly as a result. So what does insulin tell your body to do? It tells your body to store. It tells your body to store it as belly fat. But let's say you have 100 calories of sprouted grain bread. Now that's going to enter, the sugar is going to get broken down very slowly. We call that a slow carb. And so you see here, the blood sugar doesn't raise very high. And also, insulin won't raise very high. And if insulin stays low, then your body is not going to tell it to store. I'm hoping that makes sense because that is a game changer for us. Now, let me explain that again with our little diagrams. So let's just say that we are eating white bread. If we are eating white bread, then the blood sugar is going to go up very high. And just as quickly as the blood sugar goes up, the insulin goes up very high because it needs to get the sugar out of the bloodstream and store it so that it's not toxic in the body, in the bloodstream. So you have a quick rise of sugar, therefore you have a quick rise of insulin. And remember, insulin is what tells your body to store fat, especially belly fat. But that's with the white bread. Here with the sprouted bread, that is a slow carb, you have your sugar is not rising up very high, it's coming up very low. So insulin only goes up a little bit and then it stays low. And because it's low, your body is not being told to store that fat. Okay? Excuse me. My allergies have been killing me. Okay? Put some comments down below to give me some remedies for that. I've tried everything. Okay, so how do you know what is a fast carb or a slow carb? I have a little formula here that I want you to check out. It is carb divided by fiber. Carb divided by the amount of fiber in that item. If it's less than 5 when you divide it, that is a slow carb. If it is greater than 5, that is a fast carb. So let's look at some. I actually have some that I looked up. And here, let's look at white bread. So white bread could have a total carb of 14 carbs of white bread. 14 carbs of white bread divided by the amount of fiber in white bread, which is 0.5 grams. So that's going to equal 28. That's why I have that little 28 here. But let's look at sprouted bread. So sprouted grain bread, this one actually, when I looked it up, had 15 grams of carbs. So this one actually has higher carbs than the white bread. Now, 15 grams of carb, but it has 3 grams of fiber. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. So that's very close to that less than 5 there. So that's going to be a lot slower carb. So you're going to get this lower rise, therefore less insulin, therefore less storage of calories or belly fat. I hope that's making sense because that is a game changer. I used to work with patients who had diabetes, and this was something that we saw in a clinical setting, that when patients had to start using insulin, especially if they had type 2 diabetes, if they had to start using insulin, they were seeing an increase in weight because of that use of insulin. And insulin is what drives storage of energy. So calories are not equal. It makes a difference if you're taking in fast carbs versus slow carbs. Okay? So, as another example, looking at white rice. White rice has, if it has 45 grams of carbs of white rice versus 45 grams of carbs of brown rice, we can look at the fiber content. White rice has about 0.5 grams of fiber again. So that's going to put that at 90. So let's put that down. That is a score of 90. So it is not a slow carb, it is a fast carb. But let's look at brown rice. Brown rice has 4 grams of fiber. So 45 divided by 4 is 11.3. Okay? So even though it's still a bit higher than the 5, it's a lot lower than that 90 for the white rice. So you could eat 100 calories of white rice versus 100 calories of brown rice, or you could have 90 carbs of white rice versus 11.3 carbs of brown rice, and it's going to react very differently because one is a slow carb, one is a slower carb, and one is a faster carb. And this is what we're really going to be looking at is the insulin, because the insulin tells your body to store fat. So, what do we do? Here is my suggestion. We're going to use this slow framework for how you're going to approach eating your meals so that your body doesn't go into storage mode, so that your insulin doesn't go high because your blood sugars are high and cause your body to store. Okay? And it's not so much about the amount of calories or even the amount of carbs, but it's the ratio of carbs to fiber that makes a difference. So, what we're going to do is follow our slow method for making sure we are not eating in a way that will cause us to store belly fat. So, the S for slow is swap. What we're going to want to do, one of the first things I like to do with my coaching clients is we want to look at what we're eating and we want to swap out the fast carbs for the slow carbs. So if we're eating white bread, we're going to sprouted bread. We're eating white rice, we're going to brown rice. And other things that we can do too. Let's say that you are wanting to eat something that's more refined. Maybe you're at a party or something like that. My suggestion is find something that is what you're going to do is you're going to load. You're going to find something that is high in fiber to pair with it. I've even heard of people taking fiber pills to go with it. I don't suggest that per se. I'm more of a plant-based protein girly who, because I love beans, I love lentils, and those things are high in fiber. So when we say load, load up your plate with beans, greens, and seeds. Those are very high in fiber, high in protein. Maybe not the greens, but the seeds and the beans are going to be high in protein. And that's going to really make a difference in your plate. Whatever you're eating on your plate, if you load up on the beans, greens, and seeds, that's going to go very far in keeping everything very slow and making sure that you don't get that insulin spike, that blood sugar spike, and cause the storage of fat. Also, you're going to optimize. So, optimize, when I say optimize, what I'm meaning is you are going to calculate this. So it's just a quick head calculation when you're at the store and you're looking at pastas and you're like, okay, what pasta should I get? And this one says whole grain. This one says keto. This one says whatever, you know? What you're going to do instead is you're going to do this formula. Like I looked it up for refined pasta. Refined pasta could be 42 grams of carbs, okay? And it may have 2 grams of fiber. That gives a score of 21. That's a bit above our 5. But let's say you do a lentil pasta or a chickpea pasta. You have 35 grams of carbs and you have 13 grams of fiber. That puts that at a 2.7. That's super low. So if you're afraid of pasta, consider getting that plant-based, plant fiber pasta like the chickpea or the lentil because that's very slow carb, okay? So you're going to optimize by using this formula. Whatever the carbs are, divided by the fiber and making sure it's 5 or less, okay, or less than 5. Another thing you're going to do is you're going to wait. So we have S for swap, L for load, O for optimize, W for wait. If you're not sure exactly what that means, well, I talk about that in depth in my last video on how your body stores and how your body burns fat, looking at fasting periods between our meals. We're going to want to wait 4 to 5 hours between our meals so that our insulin has time to go down. Because when insulin stays high because we keep eating meal after meal after meal, then our body is always in fat storage mode and it's never in fat burning mode. Okay? So we're going to want to wait that 4 to 5 hours in between our meals. And at night, what I like to do with my coaching clients is make sure that their overnight fast is at least 12 hours. I love to push it as close to 18 as possible, depending on their situation. But that's going to be in major fat burning mode. Like I said, learn more about that in my last video on how your body stores and how your body burns fat. Now, these are things that we discuss in my 8-week core challenge. If you are struggling with loose, weak tummy, with back pain, leaking, these are things that we pair with the deep core exercises. We do this part and we also do the deep core exercises, and all of that is in the 8-week core challenge. If you want more information on that, definitely check out the comments below for that. But this is going to make such a big difference for you because, like I said, A calorie is not a calorie. It makes a difference as far as the hormones that we are producing as a result of whether or not we're taking in fast carbs versus slow carbs. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.